Hello and welcome to Shoot the Hostage with me, Dan, and my partner, Sarah. We're a movie podcast who talks about a different film each week based on a theme. We do swear and we do spoil the featured movie, so only ever listen if you've seen the film or you don't care too much about spoilers. If you're a regular listener, you can just skip forward until you hear the intro music because you've heard all of this before. But if you are new to the show and you do enjoy what you hear, there are a couple of things you can do to help support the show. Firstly, make sure that you're subscribed on your podcast player so you get notified when new shows drop on Mondays. You could rate us 5 stars on Spotify, which couldn't be easier. You just hit the star icon below the show's artwork. Or if you have a spare few minutes, we'd love it if you could submit a review wherever you listen. Make sure you come follow us at STH_pod on social media. We are active on Instagram, X, Threads, and TikTok. And lastly, the biggest thing you can do to help is tell a friend about the show. So that's about it. That's enough preamble from me. Over to me and Sarah for this week's episode. So we made it. We're at the final episode of my Neo-Western season.
Our?
But it's our podcast, but it's my season.
I don't like you taking ownership. I've been here too.
Of course you have, but I thought you'd be happy that I'm taking responsibility for some of the choices that quite clearly do not fit in a Neo-Western season.
Yeah, all right then.
See, I thought so. But that aside, we're at episode 40. When we first started planning the podcast and we thought, yeah, we'll do 8 a season, that's going to be about 40 a year. Main episodes, main shows, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, this is our 1 year anniversary of the podcast.
Cool. You know what they say, don't you? Life begins at 40.
They do say that. And podcasts begin at 40. Have you ever heard that phrase?
I've never heard that. I don't think that's a phrase.
We're going to coin it now.
Okay. Does that mean we're going to have to up our game?
Yeah.
I don't want to set the bar too high for ourselves.
It does really. Well, it's your choice of season next time, so the pressure's on you.
Yeah.
Next time.
Oh no.
This comes out, I think, about a week before our actual sort of 1 year anniversary, which is technically on the 1st of May.
Yeah.
But let's just call this one our 1 year anniversary show. And what a way to celebrate, because we're doing a John Carpenter, or JC, as we like to call him.
Do we?
Yeah, I call him JC. In all of my notes, I've just written JC says this and JC says that on the commentary.
He's the only JC that we acknowledge in this house.
I can't think of another one.
Jesus Christ. I think that's when most people say JC, I think that's who they're referring to.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, my teachers at school were talking about referring to the bloke what made the thing.
In RE?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he is a god, I suppose.
I thought, I always thought it was John Carpenter that spent 3 days in that cave.
Oh, no. No. You thought he was nailed to a cross?
I thought so, yeah.
Is that why he looks so pissed off all the time these days?
Yeah. He probably feels like he was nailed to a cross with some of the shit that he's had to go through with some of these studio movies, and not least with Big Trouble in Little China. It was made on a budget of $25 million, and it grossed about 11 million, so lost quite a wedge of money.
Okay.
It's funny because I knew that it didn't do well, but in my mind, it was always The Thing was his biggest flop. But it's not. The Thing's budget was 10 million and it grossed 20 million. Oh,
okay.
What do you think his biggest budget movie has been?
Ooh.
If you had to guess.
Oh, wow. Oh, tell me it's not like Escape from LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, no. All of that CGI, expensive CGI rendering.
50 million was his biggest budget.
Wow.
And that grossed 25 million. So that lost 25 million as well. His films have not done great financially.
Yeah. I guess that's why he's sort of struggled in later years. It's funny because he's a director that's held in such high regard, especially among genre fans.
Mm.
But yeah, he's not a profitable director by any stretch.
I thought you was going to say he's not a prophet. Taking it back to JC.
No, he is a prophet.
He is a prophet. He's a prophet in my eyes. That
Yeah.
beautiful moustache that he's had for 58 years. Yeah, it's curious, isn't it? Because he's never been, I guess, aside from, Halloween, which made all of the money, he's sort of, and he's made fantastic movies that everyone that's a movie fan has a favourite John Carpenter movie.
Yep.
And he's made a lot of bangers and a couple of turkeys, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I probably enjoyed Escape from LA more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a good film, but it's an enjoyable film.
I think it's good trash.
Do you?
I enjoyed it for what it was, but then I guess maybe by the time that I actually got around to seeing it, my expectations were kind of quite low.
You were just happy there was a character called Cuervo.
Yeah. Yeah. Big Trouble in Little China. So average ratings on Letterboxd 3.7 and 7.2 on IMDb.
That's high.
That is high. Right out the gate, I'm going to say that this is my favourite JC movie.
Yeah.
I think you probably figured that out about me pretty early on.
What, me?
Yeah.
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 Are we going to get into it?
I was just going to say, like, I think obviously we met on Tinder, and one of my pictures was me with a Pork Chop Express top on. So I would probably say that it's probably the first movie that you knew that I liked.
Yeah, that was like the primary reason for me swiping right.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that Big Trouble in Little China and Nightbreed are the films responsible for our relationship in some way.
Absolutely. Like I said, Big Trouble, my favourite John Carpenter movie. But it's not your favourite John Carpenter movie?
No. I think it's great. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a whole heap of fun, but it's sitting around the middle.
In the middle?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, good Lord.
But I don't like. I'm inclined to rate it higher because the combination to me of Kurt Russell and John Carpenter is iconic. I think because he's done so many other bangers that I love. I think it just speaks to the quality of his output more than anything, because I think this is a really good film and it's still only at the middle. So that to me sort of that's a really good compliment.
Yeah, that's fair. He worked with Kurt Russell 5 times. I believe we've already mentioned Escape from LA, which is probably at the bottom of that collaboration.
Yeah.
But so what's your favourite John Carpenter movie then? Let's put everyone out of their misery.
I've only mentioned it about 15 times on this show already. It's The Thing, obviously.
Yeah, we might have a new listener. You never know.
We might. Yeah, it's The Thing.
It's The Thing.
I think it's a perfect film.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. And that's kind of how I feel about this. About Big Trouble in Little China. And I think I was thinking about this the other day when I was sort of prepping for the show, and I thought everyone probably has a favourite John Carpenter movie, and that probably speaks to their tastes and maybe slightly towards their personality as well. Like, you're a big horror fan, you love The Thing.
I'm distrustful of those around me.
Yeah.
And I like dogs.
Yeah.
You're a bit chaotic. So you like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah. But that's the thing about this movie. It has so many different elements, not least the comedy and the kind of taking tropes and just flipping them on their heads and throwing them in the bin and setting fire to them. And the martial arts and the action stuff, like it's very much Flavor Dan, this movie. I just find it interesting that what other people's favourite John Carpenter movies might be. You know, some people might say They Live, which would be wrong.
It's still wild to me how much you dislike that film.
It's my least favourite John Carpenter movie. I put Vampires above They Live. I'm sorry.
That's crazy.
I know. Even Ghosts of Mars, I think I enjoy more than.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry. I do like Ghosts of Mars though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason.
It's a bizarre movie. and it's not great, but I just enjoy it. And it's the same with vampires. There's a lot of problems. In fact, vampires probably would have fitted this season's theme a lot more than Big Trouble in Little China, actually.
It would, but I think we already had a vampire western.
Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China. So it was written by Gary Goldman and David Weinstein, who did the original screenplay. The original screenplay was actually a western, and it was set in 1800s San Francisco.
Okay, I didn't know when it was set. I remember you told me it was originally conceived as a western, and I remember reading somewhere that initially Jack Burton was supposed to like ride into town on a horse,
Yeah,
rather than in a a truck.
yeah.
I'm glad they made the change.
I am too. Sort of fascinated to see how that original version might have played out, but obviously this is a perfect 5-star movie, so I wouldn't want to go fuck with it. Yeah, so originally a western, and it did have still a lot of the Chinese mysticism kind of fused with the elements of the Old West. But after a rewrite, the studio, they still weren't satisfied with it. They kind of weren't very happy with it, so they brought someone in to do a rewrite, W.D. Richter, who did a rewrite in 10 weeks. And then they made the film as quickly as possible because they felt like it was in direct competition with Paramount's The Golden Child.
Oh yeah, I read that yesterday. Yeah, I read that they rushed it through and they beat it to the punch by a few months, didn't they? Was it like 5 months or something they got the jump on them?
Oh, did they? Big Trouble came out first.
Yeah, it did,
okay.
Yeah.
DOP, Dean Cundy, he's got 101 DOP credits.
I know that name. Has he worked with Carpenter before?
Yeah, so they collaborated on Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing,
right? Okay,
and this movie, and then they sort of their timelines sort of started to move away from each other and whatnot. But he also worked on Halloween 2 and 3 because they wanted to maintain some consistency with the franchise, which is bizarre. Oh yeah,
because they absolutely nailed that consistency with the third one, didn't they?
But the second one they did, obviously, but then the third one they just went completely the other direction. But yeah, he continued to work on those next 2 Halloween movies, and then he was off to the races. He's working with Zemeckis on Back to the Future trilogy.
Oh wow!
Spielberg on Jurassic Park. He's doing a Roger Rabbit. He's doing an Apollo 13.
Your favourite?
Yeah, snooze fest. He did Roadhouse, which keeps coming up randomly. Yeah. The original one, not the superior remake.
Oh, shut your face. Well, it's no wonder I recognise the name then.
Yeah, just like everything. Yeah. Everything. Like it's funny, like doing this podcast when you sort of dig a little bit deeper into things. There's some names that you sort of know that I always recognise, like Deakins and people like that. But Dean Cundy, the name sounded familiar, but I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so he's the DP. What else has he done? I was like, oh, he's done everything.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah, exactly. And lately he's been working on some Star Wars stuff with The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So still around, still working.
Cool.
VFX producer Richard Edlund, who worked on Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Fright Night, the inferior original version.
God damn you. Who knew this was going to be so divisive?
I'm kidding. Although I do really like the remake.
Yeah, you're that one who does.
I think it's good. I think it's a good movie.
David Tennant is good.
We need to rewatch that together.
Okay.
Double bill, remake of Fright Night and remake of Roadhouse.
No. Double bill of the original Fright Night and the remake of Fright Night, and then we weigh up which one is better.
I like it. Let's do that. Okay. That's a great idea. Yeah, so Richard Edlund, Ghostbusters, he also worked on that.
It's not the only connection to Ghostbusters this film has, is it?
Explain. Is there a ghost sucking off someone in Big Trouble in Little China that I missed?
Well, yeah, there was so much going on that just happened in the background.
Dan Aykroyd's in a background somewhere, is he?
So I laugh every time I say this, but egg sheds. His the interior of his place is Fire Station 23. I want to say it's the interior for the firehouse that's used in the original Ghostbusters.
Oh, really?
And the newest Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. because I know the exterior of Ghostbusters is a building in New York, so I just would have assumed that the interior is as well. Like, stupidly, like I should know better, really, considering you have a film podcast. Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. But now that you've mentioned it,
Yeah.
I can see it.
It's funny, I read that piece of trivia before rewatching the film, so I was kind of looking out for it, and as soon as they set foot in it, I was like, "Oh, that's so obvious.
Yeah.
Why have I never seen this before?"
The only thing it's missing is a desk with Janine and Rick Moranis just milling about. What else? He worked on Masters of the Universe, which is a great movie, and just like the effect, I like the effects in that. I know that there's this thing that it ran out of money and the end is just a sword fight in a dark room, but I quite like it. I think it turned out pretty good.
I will counter that with I don't think it's a very good film, but it is responsible for a huge part of my childhood enjoyment, so I love it.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's very good.
It's definitely it's one of those that I do view it through the eyes of a 7-year-old boy still when I'm watching it.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah, and it's very much a comfort movie. It reminds me of Christmas for some reason. I think it was on at Christmas every now and again.
See, that's Labyrinth for me.
Is it?
It used to be on TV every Christmas.
I thought it was on TV every Sunday. I remember it was Dinosaurs and then Labyrinth.
Oh, the dream. So many puppets.
God, that's a Sunday just made in heaven for you, isn't it? Production designer John Lloyd, 17 credits as production designer, not least your favourite John Carpenter movie, The Thing, and 80 credits as art director. Cast, obviously, we've got Kurt Russell. I mean, do we need to say much about Kurt Russell?
He needs no introduction.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to sit here and list all of his movies. Because I haven't seen most of them, I don't think. Because most of them are probably Disney films.
Oh, some very early Disney films.
Yeah. Kim Cattrall was in this, hot off of the success of Police Academy.
When did Mannequin come out?
Oh, good shout. Oh, I want to say 85.
Okay.
But it could be 87. Also, don't hate that movie.
Yeah, she has a streak of like guilty pleasures in the 80s, didn't she?
No, I enjoyed that one. And of course, we've covered Police Academy in our first season. So this is our second Kim Cattrall movie.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. This is our first Dennis Dunn movie because we haven't covered one of his films yet. And I would like to get to another one of his at some point.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Well, it's Prince of Darkness. It's the
okay.
second best JC movie.
What's your third favourite? Is it Christine?
Yes, probably Christine, yeah.
Okay.
I know, I'm sorry. The Thing is not in my top 3.
No, I know. But they're all great.
Yeah.
Like, I have no bones about the order of people's favourite John Carpenter movies because they're all fucking bangers. Apart from The Ward.
Oh, do you know I haven't seen The Ward actually?
Don't.
I won't. I'm not going to bother because I don't know. It doesn't look like it would feel like a John Carpenter movie.
No, it doesn't really.
Yeah, that's why I've never bothered with it. If there was had some John Carpenteriness about it, with like the effects and in the way he just makes films, I would have probably gotten around to it by now. But it seems like it's not really got much personality, and everyone said it was shit, so I never bothered.
It's a wise choice.
James Hong as David Lopan, who's still knocking around, 95 years old.
Is he really?
Still making movies, yeah. He was, the last time we saw him was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, of course. Oh my God, yeah, of course. So he does actually look like Lopan in the old man makeup now.
Yeah. Victor Wong, who you've mentioned already.
Of course.
Victor Wong as Egg Shen.
Our second Victor Wong?
Yep. We have, yeah. It's the second Victor Wong movie this season. In fact.
Yeah.
Obviously, having starred in Tremors. He's also in Prince of Darkness, and I think we mentioned in our Tremors show, he's also in 4 Three Ninjas movies. When did you first see this one, Sarah?
Ooh. I think I would have been quite young. I'd have seen it on TV. It's not one that I rented, so it would have been probably an accidental watch.
Yeah.
And I remember being a bit confused, but I think because it's got so much going for it that a younger audience would enjoy,
Yep.
I was still pretty transfixed because there's so much going on. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was pretty young when I saw this, much like a lot of my favourite movies. I would say probably 5 or 6. I think it was 5 or 6 would have been '89, and I think I saw it on television, so maybe a bit older, maybe 7 or 8. But I believe it was recorded off the television, and I think the first few minutes were cut off, and I believe for the first probably 20 times I saw this movie, I thought that it began with Jack Burton in a truck. So it wasn't until I saw it later on in life that I saw the original first scene. I was like, what's this?
That is so wild that you say that, because I've seen this film so many times. And my first note is that I always completely forget that it starts this way with Victor Wong.
Yeah.
I never remember that. How wild is that? But I did read that was added after the fact. It wasn't intended to start that way, was it?
No, it was a studio note. So the studio execs sat around and watched this movie, and they went, "Oh, I don't get it. Jack Burton's not very good." And they were like, "Yeah, you do get it. That's the joke."
Yeah.
But they were like, "No, we need it. We need a scene at the beginning explaining how much of a hero Jack Burton is." So that's why that scene is at the start of the movie. But I guess it was a compromise on John Carpenter's part, but it doesn't really affect the movie too much, because you sort of get that out of the way and you get a little bit of magic, and then it's fine. You move on to Burton.
Yeah. I think the version that I have in my head that, as you've just said, that starts with him just in the truck is the superior version, though.
Agreed. But given that it's kind of the first scene, I can get over it pretty quickly. And I guess knowing the story behind it as well helps, and it just kind of amuses me. It tickles me whenever I see that scene, and I'm just like, you idiots.
So, first scene out of the way, then we meet Jack Burton in the truck. What is your first impression of Jack Burton?
I like how he never drives faster than he can see.
Are you just going to quote the film now?
Yeah.
For the rest of the show?
It's like we were having a chat on WhatsApp yesterday, and for about 2 hours I was just communicating in Jack Burton gifs.
Yeah, and then I just gave up.
Yeah.
I stopped. I don't know if you noticed, I just stopped replying. I was like, oh, fuck this.
Yeah.
Getting no sense out of you.
No, I love it. You get the truck, and he's immediately you get the impression that he loves the sound of his own voice.
Yeah.
It's that line that I've already mentioned, but he says, I believe the full line is, "Like I told my first wife, I never drive faster than I can see, and besides that, it's all in the reflexes," which is something that we quote quite a lot. You know, if we drop a thing and then catch it quickly, you'll go to me, "It's all in the reflexes," and I'm like, I love you.
That's all it takes for a healthy relationship.
United by Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. Yeah, I love that. I love that first scene of him. It's just so much fun, and Kurt Russell is amazing in this. This is obviously my favourite John Carpenter movie. It's obviously my favourite Kurt Russell movie as well.
Yeah,
he's brilliant, and he just nails that comedy, and his lack of ego in doing this as well, I think, is great.
I thought you were talking about the character for a second. I was like, what? I didn't. John Carpenter have to fight for him though, because I know that the studio weren't super keen to have him on board, and Kurt Russell, I believe, was also a little bit. He had a bit of trepidation because he'd been in a series of films that hadn't performed well at the box office, so he was worried that his presence would sort of tank another one for John Carpenter.
Well, I think I heard somewhere that there was some consideration on Clint Eastwood, which would have been terrible.
Yeah. He doesn't seem like a man who's got a very good sense of humour.
No, definitely not. I can see the logic. I mean, in the sense that I can see why you would go there as your first choice, because especially given that it was originally meant to be a Western, and the fact that it's taking this kind of hero character and turning him into a sidekick, it's subverting that trope. So it would have been interesting to have Clint Eastwood, in theory, do that. I don't think it would have worked at all as a viewer.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you sort of talked about Kurt Russell's lack of ego, because I don't think Clint Eastwood's ego would have allowed him to take on this role in the same way.
No, I think it would have been a different movie. I think he would have done
Yeah.
away with all of the flipping of the hero and the sidekick character.
Oh, that's what makes it great.
That's exactly right. It's the one of the things that makes this film so great is Jack Burton thinking he's the hero, but he's the side character who spends a lot of the time asleep and just asking questions.
Knocking himself unconscious.
Yeah, exactly. So Clint Eastwood, no. While I see the logic, I don't think it would have worked, and it would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah, very tonally different. I read somewhere that Jack Nicholson was considered.
Oh, I think better than Clint Eastwood, but still no.
Yeah, I just feel like, again, Jack Nicholson feels like somebody who just takes himself a bit too seriously for a role like this.
Have you seen The Departed?
No.
Have you?
No, yes I have.
Oh, he's insane in that. But yeah, he's Kurt Russell's just pitch perfect, and I struggle to see anyone else in that role. I think...
Oh, he really made it his own.
Yeah, he really did. And I think you mentioned that he had some trepidation about it. I think he read the script and he kind of got it eventually. And I think as well, by that point, he'd struck up quite a close bond with John Carpenter. And they kind of became friends over what they describe in the commentary as their work ethic. And they're, to this day, like really good mates. I think the commentary on the Blu-ray, I think it was recorded in about 2000 or 2001, so only kind of 15 years or so out of Big Trouble in Little China. But just their friendship they're like two 14-year-old schoolboys chatting on the bus. It's really, it's so much fun to just listen to them talk. If they had a podcast, I would just listen to the shit out of that.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. What was the first film they worked on together the Elvis movie?
Yeah.
Was that 70s?
Yeah, it was just before Halloween, which was 78.
That was 78. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been. I think it was the year before. I think it was 76 or 77. The Elvis show.
Oh, it's like a 50-year friendship. I love that.
Yeah, but they both really kind of. They loved the idea of the Jack Burton character thinking he's the hero, and they was even listening to the commentary. They were laughing at how just ridiculous that character is. How not how serious, but how much he thinks he's the hero, and how much of an idiot he actually is. But it speaks to Kurt Russell just having the, I guess, just allowing himself to do that, it sort of look like being the joke of the movie, basically. I like that. And I think as well, I did a thing when I watched it this time round. This is a movie that I probably watch every year, I would say. So I'm pretty familiar with it at this point. But this is the first time that I've ever sat down and actually made a note of every question that Jack Burton asks. And there are a lot of questions. So shall we run through a few?
Go for it.
All right. So times Jack Burton asks a question. Who is Lopan? Where the hell am I? Who the hell are you anyway? Someone tell me what the hell's going on. What the hell does that mean? China is here.
That was more of a demand than a question, but okay.
What is this? Chinese or something counting backwards?
Okay.
Jesus Christ, where are we?
JC.
Where's my truck? All right. Which way fast before they wake up? Should we go up or down? Where's Gracie?
These are all important questions.
Yeah. I'll come back to some of these, don't worry. I'm about halfway through the list now.
Oh my God.
Any of them savvy English?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Not a great guy.
No.
Jack Burton, where does this go? Egg Shen, down. JB, down where? That kills me, that one. Down. Where in the hell are we?
Jack Burton, often lost.
Yeah. What is that, huh? What will come out no more?
That could be about anything.
Yeah. What? This gets worse? Come on. God, I can't. This list is a lot longer saying it than it is writing it down, Eddie.
Exhausting.
Yeah. Last couple. Are they real?
Ooh.
This is one of my favourite ones. Jack Burton. What's in the flask? Magic potion? Egg shen. Yes. Jack Burton. What do we do? Drink it? Egg shen. Yes. Jack Burton. Good. Thought so. Oh, my God. No. What the hell is that? Don't tell me. Last one. Terrific. A 6 demon bag. Sensational. What's in it, egg? Oh.
Quizzical man.
Quizzical man, but yeah, just completely lost in his own movie. And that's the genius of this film. He's an outsider. And I love how Gracie actually says, or no, he says, first act of the movie, he says, I'm feeling like a little bit of an outsider here. And Gracie says, you are. And like,
yeah.
I can't believe that the studio just didn't get that. It's fucking obvious. Yeah.
Studio I think heads are idiots.
I think that they got it, but they didn't want that, I guess. They thought it was...
Or maybe they don't respect audiences enough to think that they would get it too.
Yeah, I guess so. And how wrong they were, because people loved this movie. It did tank at the box office, but I think that's more of a marketing thing, because they just didn't believe in the project, so they didn't market it.
I feel like this would have been a really hard sell. Like some of it has to boil down to not knowing how to market it, because how do you even describe this film? Obviously, like you can pigeonhole it as an action adventure, but there's a lot more going on, and it's, I don't know, it's not an easy sell.
But it fuses a lot of different elements. It subverts some tropes, which we've mentioned already. I would call it an action comedy if I had to boil it down to something, but it's obviously got elements of fantasy, action, a lot of other things. But yeah, it's very, above all else, for me, this is a comedy. It makes me laugh more than some other straight comedies. I think it's great. And I think the best joke is in that Jack Burton just constantly asking a question.
Yeah, it's funny. It didn't strike me until this watch just how funny of a film it is. Like, obviously, it's always made me laugh before, but I think I haven't seen it as many times as you have. Nowhere close. So I think I forget bits between viewings.
Yeah.
And I was definitely surprised this time by how much it made me laugh.
I think it's just, a lot of it is in Kurt Russell's delivery. It's in the bravado of that character, him sort of walking in with his big swinging dick, thinking he's the best thing since sliced bread.
It's everybody though, like Kim Cattrall as well. Like her when she shows up, her second scene in the film, when she sort of comes out of the rain and stumbles into the building, and she's like, "Don't worry, it's only me, Gracie Law." And just her delivery of that ludicrous introductory line kills me.
Yeah. No, she's really good as well. Like I said, I think this is above all else a comedy. I think Dennis Dunn does a great job as well, especially some of the physical stuff. And he's not a trained martial artist. So he had a bit of training, I think, during the production of the movie, but he really sells the shit out of everything that he does. And like we said, I think he's the hero of the movie.
I made a note about this. Like, it's really, the only thing that's really sad to me, obviously Kurt Russell's iconic. Nobody's going to take that away from him. But I think it's really kind of sad that he's the person people remember. People come away from this film remembering Jack Burton, but not necessarily Wang. Yeah. Like, I've never seen a Wang action figure. Yeah. Wait, that came out wrong. Unless I've been in Ann Summers. No, I don't know. I wish he got more recognition for this role, because it wouldn't work without him either. Agreed. And he is the true hero of the piece. Yeah.
He's explaining the plot to Jack Burton as well. And I think their first scene together, Jack and Wang, is when they're gambling in Chinatown, and I think it's a really good introduction to the characters as well, because you get a sense of Wang's kind of, I want to say hot-headedness, but his willingness to gamble and take a risk, because he loses the bet to Jack and sort of says, double or nothing, I can split this bottle in half with my knife. And Jack Burton says, oh, I've got nearly $1,000 here. And Wang says, no, you've got 1,048. So I'm like, oh yeah, so Jack can't count. Wang's clever, but he takes risks. And I like that. Of course, he loses the bet. Jack catches the bottle. It's all in the reflexes. And then he says, right, now I want $1,048 times 2, because he can't do the maths. And that tickles me as well.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't necessarily credit the script with being as intelligent as it is, because not only is it funny, it is pretty smart as well and very self-aware.
Yeah, it's so self-aware, and it's all character. It's all stuff that you think these characters would say and do, and it all feeds into each other brilliantly, perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think the performances as well, and I really love James Hong as Lopan as well. Like, I feel like he's just another guy that just got it. He's ridiculous.
He's hamming it up a treat.
Yeah, and he's fucking magnificent.
Yeah.
I love that bit when he gets wheeled out in the old man makeup. And Jack Burton says, oh, I don't get it. And Lopan says, well, you weren't brought on this earth to get it. That made me laugh a lot. I love it. I love him. I love David Lopan as a villain. I think he's great. It's so funny.
He's really fun, yeah. But even the kind of really minor characters, like, I don't even know her name. The lady with the red hair, that's Gracie's friend. I just call her exposition girl in my notes. Because just her kind of very blunt over-explaining of the plot to the other characters and exactly who this person is, it's so funny and so smartly written, because a lesser film would have done that without irony.
Yeah. You've got to, if you're going to do this movie, you've got to go for it. It wouldn't work if they kind of dialed it down a little bit. Apparently, I think I heard somewhere that the studio at one point asked Carpenter to take out all of the comedy stuff, and I wonder what would have been left of the movie. It would have been a 15-minute movie.
Why?
But then they asked him to put it all back in again, and he was like, "Oh my god!"
Jesus Christ! It's no wonder he looks cranky all the time, having to deal with that shit.
I think he just got fed up with the studio system. I think this is the movie that actually killed it for him. I think after this, after this he does They Live, which is obviously a lot smaller budget.
Yeah.
He does Prince of Darkness, which is a single location movie, so I imagine that's very much a smaller budget as well. In the Mouth of Madness, but which curiously is not a film that I'd even heard of until about 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that like in 92, 93?
Somewhere around that time, yeah.
Yeah, I have that on VHS if you want to watch it.
Yeah, I would actually like to give that another watch. Yeah, definitely. What else did he? I suppose he might have dipped his toe back into the studio game with The Invisible Man, that Chevy Chase movie, randomly.
Yeah, there's a sort of semi-anthology feature called Body Bags. I think it was him and Toby Hooper. But that never gets talked about, and I don't believe it's had a release over here.
Okay.
So yeah, much smaller projects.
Yeah, and then he sort of goes on to make obviously Vampires and Ghosts of Mars, which we've mentioned. And then after that, it was The Ward. So I think I would say this. Oh no, we have obviously Escape from LA, which was
96, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, he did dip his toe back into the studio game a bit more, but I think this definitely soured him, and I don't know if he ever really got over it. Which is fair, because it sounds like they had so much fun making this movie, particularly Kurt and JC. But I guess when they got to post-production and as they were leading up to the release of the movie, I think things got quite tense, quite sour between the studio and John Carpenter, and yeah, it just left a bad taste in his mouth, I think.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, it is and it's not. I think it's really difficult, isn't it? Because I think he made some of his best films when he was sort of under the thumb of a studio, which sucks. But yeah, that must be so frustrating as an artist to feel like you're constantly on a leash.
Another one that you'd be forgiven for Halloween being your favourite John Carpenter movie, because it is obviously it was a game changer for the horror genre, and a lot of people probably do cite it as one of their favourites. But that was made, I believe, on a budget of $300,000.
Yeah, I can believe that.
So hugely profitable, which is weird. Like this weird small indie film that someone made became this just absolute juggernaut of a franchise machine. So much so that they're still making Halloween movies now.
For better or worse.
Yeah, I do. I like. I think every now and again they ask John Carpenter about remakes of his movies and things like that, and his attitude is just like, look, I hold my hand out and they drop a check in my hand. That's all I need.
Goes back to pootling about on his keyboard.
Yeah. Obviously, that's what he's kind of doing more than anything else now, is making music with his son, Cody Carpenter, I think. So I don't know. While I would love more John Carpenter movies, I'm also quite happy that he's just getting to just do his thing. I think he had such a run in the 80s, and if he didn't work again after Big Trouble in Little China or They Live, if you're partial to that, like that would have been better output than 95% of other directors, I would say.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
It's so weird that he just had this run of just banger after banger after banger, magnificent movies that changed everything, that didn't make any money.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I don't know. Big Trouble in Little China did seem to clean up in the home video market.
Well, yeah.
It did well. Well, it did very poorly on its cinematic release, but it did do well after that. Thank God it finally found its audience.
Yeah, it definitely was one of those cult movies for... Well, I suppose you'd still describe it as a cult movie. I think everybody has probably heard of that film now. But yeah, it definitely probably helped in having the home video market to fall back on. And I guess in mid-80s, 90s was kind of when that was peaking, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well, like another thing about this film is that the special effects are fucking great. Like a lot of the time, when you think about special effects and John Carpenter, you'll think about The Thing, obviously magnificent creature design and special effects in that movie, like all-time greatest ever, definitely, for sure. But also I think Big Trouble deserves a nod to that as well. I mean, I really love the production design I've already mentioned, but the production designer building forced perspective hallways. You've got that stuff with the set design, but also the special effects with the creature design. I love the floating.
I love the creature design.
It's great, isn't it?
The Guardian freaks me out, though. That weird little chewed bubblegum thing with all the eyes on it. I hate that.
It's great.
It is great, but I hate it.
It's on the Arrow Blu-ray, which we both own a copy of.
Yeah. We need a spare. You never know.
We need a spare, yeah. We both had a copy when we met, all right? We didn't buy them like at the same time or whatever. But it's funny, we both prefer different sides of the reversible cover as well. So there is a difference there. But yeah, on that Arrow release, there's also some really cool interviews with John Carpenter, Kurt Russell, Dean Cundy, and Richard Edlund, the SFX producer.
Right.
And he talks about the creature design. He talks about the Guardian, and he said that it must have cost about $100,000 for that on its own.
Wow.
The VFX or the SFX budget was $1.8 million, which he said was quite low for what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah. So I read some stuff about this yesterday as well. I was perhaps misinformed because I read 2 million, so maybe they just rounded up for that article. Yeah. But yeah, I read that there was a bit of friction between John Carpenter and the SFX team, because I think they sort of thought that his expectations were a little bit high given the restrictions they were working with. And I think John Carpenter maybe felt that they were dragging their heels a little bit. So there was a little bit of friction at the
Oh,
time.
okay. I think I saw that the effects budget for the thing was 2 million. So a lower
Okay.
budget movie with a slightly higher effects budget. So maybe Carpenter had sort of gotten accustomed to the team working on that movie. But yeah, so he said that the floating eyeball, what did you call it? The Guardian,
Guardian,
the
yeah.
floating eyeball head monster, $100,000. They built it and they had a blue screen and they cut a circle out of the blue screen and they had about 15 people behind it operating all of the animatronics, and that's how they got it to look like it was kind of floating. And
Oh.
that Richard Edlund, also having worked on Ghostbusters, which we mentioned earlier, didn't very much make me think of Slimer, and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's how they kind of did that as well. It's been a long time actually since I've seen Ghostbusters, so it could be different, but a floating head monster, that's the through line there.
Yeah, I can see the similarities for
Yeah.
sure. Do you know anything about the big sort of monster thing? I don't know. I don't even know what to call it.
Furry
I
guy.
yeah, the thing that looks like
I,
Rawhead Rex fucked a Bigfoot.
oh yeah, that guy. I think Headland referred to him as the Wild Man.
The
That
Wild
that
Man. Okay.
character.
How did that come about? Whose brainchild was all of this stuff?
I think it was all in the script. So I think
Okay.
the original screenplay probably had quite a lot of it in. I don't know what would have been added by Richter, or obviously he turned it into a contemporary piece, but I
Mhm.
don't know if he really added much else.
So
Into
that would have been in it as a Western.
I don't know. I hope so. I'd like to think so.
Now I want to see that version.
Yeah. But I know I don't have any information on actual like the cost of it, but it was obviously it was a costume. It was a bloke in a suit. It must have been
Mhm.
really hot in that thing. The other notable effect in this that I really enjoy is when Lopan's head begins to glow. And what
Yeah.
they did is they had James Hong. They took a cast of his head, and they put 1,000-watt light bulb in this hollow cast of his head. But they said that they had to get the shot really quickly because the head would just start to smoke. So they like
Okay.
under pressure, I guess. Like I don't know if I could handle that on set. That's super high pressure time.
Yeah.
And also already mentioned the forced perspective stuff. I didn't realize the part where Jack Burton is wheeling backwards towards the well. That was actually a flat set, and he was on a dolly track.
Oh, when he's in the weird sort of wheelchair thingy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a flat surface, and
Okay.
he's doing acting, pretending he's going backwards.
They hid that well because I wouldn't have
Yeah,
known.
no, they did, and that's what I mean. It's so, it's like they mentioned it on the commentary. I can't remember if it was in one of the interviews or on the commentary, but they said it felt like an old Hollywood movie where they're using these old tricks, and that's why it works so well. That's why it holds up. Obviously, we all mention all the time about practical effects, but this movie made today
Yeah.
would be a CGI turd fest. Let's be honest.
Oh God. Yeah, you're not wrong. I do love a lot of you touched a little bit on the set design. What's your favorite set in this film, would you say?
That's a good question. Can I have a tie between five?
Between 5. Go on, yeah, sure.
No, I I love the set where they have the war between the two gangs in the alleyway. And I also love the set at the end of the film where you've got the big skull head with the neon kind of lights
I was
around it.
hoping you were going to say that. Just the strip lighting
Yeah,
just somehow elevates it and makes it look so fucking cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that as well. I think that's my favorite.
That's what I mean. Like you can take any element of this movie, I think, and just it's just masterfully done.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I almost feel bad because like I do like to try and be balanced on movies when we're covering them, but I think this is probably one of the first movies where genuinely I just have nothing bad to say. There's nothing I would change.
Bad. Don't feel bad. Like that. But to me, this is the beauty of film. Anything that can kind of spark that childlike enthusiasm, that's great. I love that you love this movie. You don't have to see anything bad in it.
Yeah.
Would you say this is your favorite movie?
It's It can't be because Terminator 2
Yeah,
is
and
my favourite
RoboCop.
movie, and RoboCop is probably my number 2. But I think this
So
is
this is 3?
look. My top 10 movies are probably all about the same. Let's be honest, like an
Okay.
arbitrary ranking system. But yeah, if I was forced, then this is number 3. I think.
Yeah. So of course you were always going to be super enthusiastic about it. Don't feel
Yeah.
bad.
No,
You
but
don't
I
need
just
balance. Balance is
I,
overrated.
but I enjoy to try and find the positives and negatives in films. And I sort of was really trying this time to think of something, and the only one is that scene at the beginning. And honestly, that's a studio note, and it's so minor that I just don't care. And actually, like I said, I quite enjoy it because I know the story behind it.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh at how idiotic those studio heads were to just completely not get it. And I wonder what could have been had they marketed this film properly and it got a big release, a big marketing campaign. Would it have done better? It may not. It may still have flopped, but I don't know. I think it would have stood more of a chance.
But maybe it wouldn't have that special something if you were walking into Primark and seeing £8 t-shirts with Jack Burton's face on.
True.
Maybe it's better this way. We can gatekeep it from the normies.
Yeah. Yeah. The Jack Burton cinematic universe.
I think,
which I would watch, actually.
I'm sure you would. I don't doubt that at all. Did you ever read that comic book that I've got?
I didn't finish it, actually. I think I did enjoy it. Are you talking about the Snake Plissken versus Jack Burton?
Jack Burton teams up with Snake Plissken.
Yeah.
Strange story, but it's great.
It was fun. I think I got about halfway through and I got distracted and then completely forgot about it until I was making notes for this film. And I was like, oh yeah, must go and revisit that.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. The only thing that I really want to touch on that we've sort of avoided talking about thus far. I did a bit of digging online to see how people feel about the racial presentations in this film, because I think it's really notable that although the star of the film is a white guy, as you've already said, like he's out of his element completely in more ways than one. Now, this film is predominantly all Asian actors, with the exception of 3, 4 cast members.
Yeah, Kate Burton, Kim Cattrall, Jack Burton, Kurt Russell.
Yeah. So it was interesting to me to sort of look for points of view of people who are maybe Chinese and how they feel about it. And the general consensus seems to be actually that the representation is really good, which obviously made me feel quite relieved, because there's always that fear that the thing you enjoy is deeply problematic and you just haven't noticed. I was fairly confident about this, but I think it's always good to sort of get other people's viewpoints and take those on board as well. The only real criticism I could find is that it sort of maybe plays a little bit into the sort of magical Chinese people stereotype, that they all know magic, which I think is such a minor complaint in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think, curiously, this, you know how some films that came out a long time ago and you viewed them and you didn't see anything wrong with them, and then you go back now and you watch them and you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that's not great, is it? I think it's kind
16 Candles.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect choice. I think, curiously, this has kind of been the reverse of that, because I believe that Carpenter did get a bit of flack when the film was released.
Did he?
For some of the reasons that you mentioned, maybe leaning into that mysticism stuff a bit too much. But I would say that now, with more modern eyes, I would say this film was kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually viewed now as, this was actually really good, especially when you consider the time. Like you say, it's mostly there's very few white actors in it. It's directed by a white guy. There is that, obviously, but it is a film about magic, and it is a film set in Chinatown, so you can't do much about that, really. And I think this has held up remarkably well. And like I said, I think it's just, I don't know, I think viewed through more modern eyes, I think it holds up way more than 16 Candles, as you've mentioned, and things like that.
It wouldn't take much. All of John Hughes' back catalogue, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I literally had to trawl the internet for quite a while to even find that minor criticism.
Yeah.
I think everybody seems to be on the same page with this one.
Totally. And also, like, it's fun because it's a comment. Also, you could read this film as kind of a commentary on the bravado of American culture, because Jack Burton is the cowboy with the big truck and he's just steaming through Chinatown in it. And that serves as a really fun metaphor, I think, for just American culture and how fucking they think they're big swinging dicks. No offense if you're American, but I just,
Hashtag not all Americans.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's the movie is making fun of that. So
it's very much making fun of that stereotype and of the main character for sure.
Yeah.
Those knee-high boots were a choice, man. What was he thinking? That always makes me laugh, those boots. But yeah, from minute one, he's shown to be so brash and egotistical, a little bit misogynistic at times, quite selfish.
Yeah.
Because out of everybody, Wang is the truly heroic one. He's the one who's like, oh, must go and save my fiance. And Jack's just like, but my truck the whole time. He even has to be like cajoled into helping.
Yeah.
So I do love, obviously, we've talked at length about the whole deconstruction of that trope, but I love how far they lean into it to the point where he is just an absolute joke.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Like, he is the joke of the film, and that's why it works so much, because like we've said 1,000 times already, he is not the hero, but the joke is that he thinks he's the hero, and the actual hero is Wang. Like you say, he's the heroic one. He's the one that wants to rescue Mao Yin, and he's got all of the moves. He does all of the fights. He kicks everybody's ass, and Jack Burton is either asleep or looking for his knife during most of the fights.
My favourite bit is when he does the little run up the archway all the way around.
Oh, isn't that great?
I love it.
Big fucking smile on my face seeing that. It's magnificent.
I bet.
I like there's one of the like, we could be here all day just doing Jack Burton lines. The one thing that I want to mention is I really love Kurt Russell's timing when they run. They're escaping Lopan's building for the first time just before Gracie gets kidnapped again and they have to go back in. But they climb up the ladders, and Jack Burton goes into the room and he says, right, from here on out, like, it's pretty normal. Don't worry, I've got your back. Follow the leader. And he opens the door and there's like 25 people behind the door, and he very calmly just closes the door, does all the locks up, turns around and says, we may be trapped. And just the timing is perfect.
Yeah, he's great.
And he says, don't worry, they only saw me. It's just so dumb. He's so dumb, and I love it. And then that's also when he goes to get his knife and he flips it, and the knife flies off screen and he completely misses the entire fight, and Wang kicks everyone's ass. Great.
Brilliantly written. And I love how far Kurt was willing to lean into that. Even the stuff like the kiss that they share in like the elevator was something that they sort of improvised themselves, because I've read somewhere that John Carpenter was saying nobody else would have done that. Nobody else would have been so willing to make themselves look so stupid, because that came about only when they realized how easily Kim Cattrall's makeup transferred. So obviously the choice to have him running around with lipstick on his teeth was kind of theirs. I love that.
It was Kurt Russell came up with it while they were shooting that scene, and I believe that they did the kiss and he had lipstick on him, and he went up to John Carpenter and said, what about he would just have lipstick on his face now, wouldn't he? John Carpenter thought about it and was like, you're right. For the rest of the movie though? And then they came up with a way to get it wiped off of him at some point. But yeah, like he does that thing. He goes and talks to Lopan, and it's kind of the final showdown. Yeah. And he's got lipstick on him. It's brilliant. And that's when he says, you know what Jack Burton always says at a time like this, and one of the three storms goes, who? And he looks so frustrated in that moment. He goes, Jack Burton, me. So good.
How has word not travelled yet?
I know. And I love how he always refers to himself in the third person. He's just such an ego.
Burton.
Yeah, you know what old Jack Burton always says. Brilliant. We haven't even talked about the three storms.
Go on then.
And how influential this movie has been, I guess, on other movies, but not least the Mortal Kombat games.
Yeah, I read that. I read there was definitely some heavy inspiration for certain characters.
Yeah, obviously you've got the characters that wear big old hats in that. And I believe they were big hats were invented by John Carpenter, I think.
No, I think you'll find it was Tom Savini.
Oh yeah, of course it was Tom Savini. Yeah, yeah. And funny enough, I've got a connection to our last episode, right? So James Remar was in The Warriors.
Yeah.
James Remar was in Mortal Kombat 2 Annihilation as Lord Raiden, thus connecting it to Big Trouble and Little China, which of course inspired Mortal Kombat.
6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon who?
6 Degrees of James Remar.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to take off quite as well.
I've got another connection to James Remar, actually. This movie came out in 1986 and Aliens came out in 1986, which James Remar was meant to be in.
which James Remar was not in.
Yeah. But no, actually, technically he is, because there's still some shots of him in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Apparently. It's that Michael Biehn character. Michael Biehn came over and took over because James Remar got into a little bit of trouble with some illegal substances and had to leave the production.
Is James Remar a baddie?
I don't think so. I think, you know, he just was going through a bit of a rough patch, I think, and maybe was struggling with some substance abuse at the time. Possibly he might have just been having a great old time. I don't really know the details on it, but yeah, the fact is that he was meant to be in that movie and was not. So that's my other connection to James Remar and this movie.
Brilliantly done.
Thank you. Did you ever hear about there potentially being a remake of this? You ever heard that?
Oh God, yeah. Another through line from last week's episode. The dreaded remake.
The R word.
I heard something about a version starring The Rock.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I think maybe in like 2015 there were some announcements made that there was going to be a version starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah. I heard that too, and at the time I was like, fuck off. No way. No way.
But
he's not gonna
they would get rid of the joke.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same film in any regard.
I don't think you can just remake the same film again. Like, what's the point in that? You could remake it and maybe it'd be good, or reboot, or like we touched last week, we were discussing whether or not we'd prefer a remake or a legacy sequel to The Warriors, and I think we landed on legacy sequel.
If we had to pick one.
Yeah, and I think for me the same applies here. Like, if we have to pick one, no, actually, I'm gonna go for, let's adapt that Snake Plissken versus Jack Burton comic and make that, you know, we'll do 2 Kurt Russells in the film. We'll do that thing where there's, you know, look, Van Damme did in Double Impact, where there's 2 of them.
Okay.
I'd watch that.
But his age now.
Yeah, you'd have to, because you can't go around de-aging him, can you?
No, he would literally be old Jack Burton.
Yeah.
I love it.
Old man Burton.
There was talk of an Escape from New York remake as well at one point. Just put them down. Stop it, Hollywood.
I know.
You can't play with these toys.
If I had to choose between the two, I would probably choose Escape from New York if we're going to remake one, because you can't...
Because you like it less.
True. But I think that's a much simpler film. Like, that is very much a straight rescue movie, you know?
Yeah, but Luc Besson already remade it as Lockout.
Yeah, true. And got into some legal trouble about it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm going with Escape from New York, I think. I would hate to see a remake of this. It's not going to work. Like, do something different. Make something different. You can make something similar, but I think that joke has been done before. I think a lot of more modern films have maybe played with the hero tropes a lot more than they were doing back then in the 80s, which is probably a reason why they found it hard to market. But I feel like nowadays audiences are a lot more sophisticated and they don't mind a lead character that's a bit more stupid, I guess, and not as well equipped as action heroes were in the 80s with, you know, not Terminator, like Sly doing Rambo movies, which JC name checks in a commentary. Actually, he talks about Rambo and says, I think that they were expecting a Rambo type movie.
Well, you're going to hate me. Well, you're not going to hate me. People listening might start tuning out at this point, but I'm going to put my feminist killjoy hat on again, once more, and say that toxic masculinity is the reason. People are far more aware of what that is and how harmful the concept is. So I think they would be far more receptive, as you say, to that kind of a character now. Whereas in the 80s, men had to be real men.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And to look foolish was not manly. Yeah. So
I think it's kind of, if it was made today, it may well get sort of lost a little bit more because it's not as fresh. In the 80s, it was completely different. You hadn't seen anything like this before, not in Western movies anyway, in terms of what it was doing with those characters. But now we've seen a lot more of that sort of thing, I guess, and I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but yeah, I just think it's, I don't know, it was lightning in a bottle. You can't recapture that. Let's leave it alone, please.
Yeah, I get. Well, the most recent example that comes to my mind, obviously, it's a completely different film because he was in the 80s always portrayed to be super bumbling anyway. But Confess, Fletch.
Yeah.
The same sort of character, you know. Fucking idiot, but thinks he's the shit.
I would say Fletch is a lot actually genuinely cleverer than Burton, though.
Oh,
he actually does have some idea
he's still
of what's
a bit of a
on.
fucking idiot, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a bit of a goof. But I think Jack Burton, you could describe him as a moron, and I think it would be accurate. I don't think...
But he has the occasional pearl of wisdom.
Who, Jack Burton?
Occasional.
Does he? Is it the bit at the end when he says, we really shook the pillars of heaven, didn't we?
That's such a good line.
Yeah, it's great.
And I love the bit that sort of turns the kind of romance, the shoehorned in romance angle on its head as well, where they're just like, oh, and you're going to kiss her? And he's like, nah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, again, just totally doing the opposite thing to what everyone expects from an action hero back then.
Yeah.
And it was fresh, and it's part of the reason why it makes it utterly rewatchable for me. God, I love this movie.
Have you got anything else to say then before we start wrapping it up?
I think probably I should start wrapping up my thoughts because people are just going to get sick of me going, fucking great this film, innit? And everyone agrees. Like, I don't know if I've ever met anyone that didn't like this film. Like, maybe it's not their favourite Carpenter, but I don't think I've ever met anyone that's watched it and gone, rubbish.
I'm going to out her now.
Oh.
My best friend tried to watch it but turned it off because she said it was boring.
Oh my God. You can't tell because it's an audio medium, but the face I'm pulling, boring.
Yeah.
Oh.
This has a breakneck pace.
It's one of the things that I haven't mentioned is the pacing of it. It just fucking moves. Like, has your friend seen Apollo 13? Because that is a boring movie. Oh my God.
I knew this was going to be your reaction.
Jesus Christ. Are you going to tell me off mic who that is?
Yeah.
Right, let's not out them now.
But yeah, no, you're right. I paused the film to go and make a cup of tea when I was watching it yesterday. And it was like 47 minutes in and I was like, what the fuck? How did that happen? I just turned it on.
I know.
It's crazy. Crazy fast.
You get those character introductions out of the way. You get to the airport and then it kicks off within 12 minutes. You're in and out of David Lopan's building once, twice, and then it's the end of the movie. And all the way through, that score is just bouncing along as well. That da, 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 da. And I think that really helps keep with the pacing as well. And I think we haven't mentioned much about the editing, but I think this is a masterfully edited film. It moves. Boring. That's such shit. Oh, I hate this. But there is someone that didn't like it. Fair enough.
We found one.
Yeah.
But they're rare. I would like to say one last thing about the film, and that is that Kurt Russell as Jack Burton as Henry Swanson is my favourite character of all time. I will not be elaborating.
Henry Swanson's my name, exciting's my game. Yeah.
It's the dorky laugh he does. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really funny. Well, that's it. We've actually done a John Carpenter movie for our 40th episode. We've done it. It was a bit daunting, I've got to say. And it was just basically an hour of me going, "Wow, fucking brilliant."
Now wrong with that.
Yeah, but like you said, I adore this movie, and I imagine one day we'll get to The Thing, and maybe that'll be your time to shine and to say how much you love that movie.
Just sure grinning in an auditory medium where people can't see me.
Yeah. So that's it. That brings us to the end of our neo-western season. We are going on our end of season break now. We returneth on the 20th of May with a brand new season, resurrected for our sixth season on May the 20th. We take it in turns to choose the themes. My choice was neo-western, which means the next choice is yours. So what are we going for?
My theme is a little bit vague this time. It is simply trapped.
Okay.
So different manners of being trapped.
Different manners of being trapped. Okay. Well, I look forward to getting stuck into that one. What is the first movie in your trapped lineup?
I believe the first one that we're covering is Cube.
Cube?
Cube.
The first Cube?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. I haven't seen that in ages. Are there 3 of those movies, I think?
I know there's Cube, Cube 2, and Cube 0.
Yeah, that's the ones
They're
I'm
the only
aware
3
of.
I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, thanks very much for listening, and we'll be back with a brand new season on the 20th of May.